Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so in the first quarter of 2025, U.S. worker productivity dropped by nearly a full percent.
Which is kind of wild.
Right. I mean, despite us having more task managers, team chat apps, and, AI assistants than at any point in human history.
Exactly.
So today, we are really decoding why that is happening and how you can measure your true progress without falling into that trap of confusing mere busyness with actual tangible impact.
It's a trap a lot of us fall into.
Oh, absolutely. So we're using a highly strategic resource from smartkeys.org today. It's this comprehensive guide by Felix Römer, and it's titled Personal Productivity Metrics: How to Quantify Your Daily Progress.
Yeah, and it is an incredibly timely piece of source material to dig into, especially, when you consider the macroeconomic environment that's driving that drop in productivity.
Right, that sobering stat.
Exactly. The text brings in that stat you just mentioned from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. I mean, a 0.8% drop in U.S. worker productivity in a single quarter is not a small blip.
No, not at all.
It really signals a fundamental disconnect.
Yeah.
It tells us that in the current business landscape, finding and tracking the right mix of efficiency and quality, well, it just isn't some neat personal life hack anymore.
Yeah, it's bigger than that.
Right. It's a strategic necessity. For businesses to survive and for individuals to stay ahead in their careers, we are working harder, but the data says we are somehow producing less.
And that is why we are talking directly to you listening right now. Because whether you are a manager who is, actively trying to streamline your team's workflow without driving them completely crazy.
Good luck with that, right?
Right. Or if you're an individual contributor who just wants a reliable, objective way to prove your value and protect your time, just think of this deep dive as your insider playbook for the future of work.
I love that. And to start addressing that productivity drop, before we can even begin to optimize our work, we actually have to define what work is.
Like in a measurable sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to move from that massive macro business landscape down to the foundational formula of your daily progress. Our source material points out that many teams, they start with a very classic baseline equation.
Right.
Productivity equals total output divided by total input.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if you just take that formula at face value, it sounds a bit cold, right?
It really does.
Just output over input. I mean, it feels like something designed for a 19th century factory floor, not a modern office.
Yeah, totally.
To me, measuring productivity without context is like wearing a fitness tracker that shocks you every time you sit down on the couch.
Oh, man. That sounds awful.
Right, like it punishes you for resting instead of measuring your actual overall health. If you're just looking at raw output, you aren't really measuring sustainable human work.
You hit the nail on the head. That industrial age hangover is exactly why the text emphasizes adding human context.
Yeah.
And keeping the actual measurement incredibly lightweight.
Yes, lightweight is key.
Right, you do not need a massive, complex dashboard that takes you an hour to update every Friday.
Ugh, nobody wants that.
No. So the author advocates for tracking a few specific daily metrics that give you a realistic picture of your capacity. And one of the primary ones is the plan-to-done ratio.
Okay, the plan-to-done ratio.
Yeah. This is just the number of tasks you actually completed divided by the number of tasks you initially assigned to yourself that morning.
Wow, okay. That feels like a brutal reality check on your ambition versus your actual capacity.
It really is.
I mean, we all have those mornings where we write a to-do list of 15 things while drinking our first coffee. And, by 5 p.m., we've only crossed off 2.
We all do it. The plan-to-done ratio forces you to confront that optimism bias. Next, the text introduces tracking focus hours.
Right.
This involves fiercely protecting 60 to 120-minute windows that are specifically dedicated to deep, uninterrupted work. And you compare the time spent in those protected blocks against your general operational hours. So things like email, quick admin tasks, catching up on chat threads, just to see where your cognitive energy is actually going.
Oh, I see. So it differentiates between actually moving the needle on a major project versus just treading water in your inbox.
Precisely. And the third piece of this baseline is a self-rated check. This one is entirely qualitative.
Oh, qualitative.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you give yourself a simple score from 1 to 10, along with just a one-line reason why.
I think that self-rated check is brilliant because it captures the human element that raw data completely misses.
Absolutely.
Because you might have only completed one task, which totally ruins your plan-to-done ratio. But if you give yourself a 9 out of 10 because you finally solved a massive, complex coding bug that had you stumped for weeks, that context matters.
It matters a lot.
But I do have to push back on that first metric, the plan-to-done ratio.
Okay, go for it.
If I know my ratio is being tracked by my team and I want to look highly productive, couldn't I just plan to do one incredibly easy task a day?
Right, sandbagging.
Yeah, my ratio would be 100%. Doesn't this metric subtly encourage people to game the system by sandbagging their goals?
What's fascinating here is that the author anticipates exactly that kind of human behavior. Whenever you introduce a metric, people will naturally try to optimize for it.
Of course they will.
This is exactly why the text insists that you cannot just track raw task counts. You have to note the task size and track the actual effort involved.
Ah, okay.
The plan-to-done ratio isn't designed to be a high score in a video game. It's an internal diagnostic tool.
So how does tracking the size prevent gaming the system?
Because it forces transparency. The article suggests that if your ratio starts drifting down, it's a signal to cut the scope of your work or start splitting those massive, intimidating tasks into smaller pieces.
Makes sense.
You capture minimal fields like task name, your time estimate, the actual time it took, and how many times you were interrupted.
Oh, so you have the data right there.
Exactly. If you are sandbagging by only doing one tiny task, the time estimate will reflect that you only did 20 minutes of actual work that day. The goal is aligning expectations with reality, not creating a vanity metric to show off in a meeting.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because protecting those focus hours and completing a high volume of tasks, it means absolutely nothing if the work you are producing is riddled with errors.
Nothing at all.
We have to transition from just measuring the time spent on tasks to measuring the quality of the outcomes. Because going back to our earlier point, if you are completing 50 tasks a day, but half of them have to be redone by someone else.
Your productivity is actually negative.
Yes. Negative productivity. And according to the text, the ultimate focus killer that degrades our quality is virtual meeting load.
The meeting load is the silent killer of quality.
It really is.
The source advises professionals to actively audit their weekly schedule. The goal is to set a hard ceiling on meetings so that you preserve those 90 to 120-minute deep work blocks.
Because you can't get anything done if you're in meetings all day.
Right. You have to move routine updates, the classic, this meeting could have been an email or a recorded video scenario.
Oh, we all know those.
Yeah, you move those to asynchronous channels and save your live meeting time strictly for actual debate and decision-making.
But let's say we do that. We clear the calendar, we have our time protected, and we are doing the work. How do we actually know if the work we did was high quality?
Good question.
Like, how do we measure if it, as the article says, stuck the landing?
So the text provides 3 highly practical ways to measure quality that move beyond just a gut feeling.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is FCR, or First Contact Resolution. Now, we usually hear this term in massive customer support call centers, but the author applies it directly to your personal requests and replies.
Interesting.
The formula is the number of issues resolved on first contact divided by total issues handled.
But how does that actually play out in a normal office setting, though? I mean, I'm not running a call center from my laptop.
Right, but think about your daily emails. Ask yourself, do your email replies or your project handoffs prevent follow-up questions?
Oh, I see.
If you send a deliverable to a colleague and it immediately generates a chain of 5 frantic emails asking for clarification, missing links, or access permissions.
And your first contact resolution is incredibly low.
Exactly.
So a high FCR means taking an extra 3 minutes to anticipate their questions. It's bolding the action items, providing the links they might need, stating the deadline clearly so they can just read it once, say, got it, and move on.
That is the exact mechanism. You spend a tiny bit more input time to drastically reduce the downstream friction.
That's brilliant.
The second quality metric is tracking defect escape signals.
Defect escape signals.
Yeah, this means keeping a very lightweight rework log. Every time you have to go back and fix something you already considered done, you note the rework, its root cause, and the time you spent fixing it.
Honestly, that sounds emotionally painful. No one wants a literal list of their mistakes staring back at them.
Well, it could be uncomfortable at first, sure. But high-performing teams normalize this. They generally aim for a defect escape rate of 5% or less.
Okay, that's not too bad.
By tracking it, you move past the emotion and look at the root causes. Like, are you always making typos on Friday afternoons?
Usually, yes.
Or is a specific type of software consistently crashing when you try to export a file? You are looking for patterns, you're not punishing yourself.
Right, right.
And the third piece of the quality puzzle is customer satisfaction cues.
Now, wait, when the text says customer, does that mean the external people buying the company's product, or is it broader than that?
It is much broader. Your customer, in this case, could just be the coworker in the next department who receives your graphic design files,
Okay.
or the manager who reads your weekly report. It involves using quick CSAT or MPS-style questions after key handoffs.
Let me stop you there for listeners who might not be in marketing. So, CSAT is a customer satisfaction score, usually just a simple rating of how happy someone is with the service. And NPS is Net Promoter Score, which asks how likely you are to recommend a service to someone else. But how do you apply a corporate marketing survey to a Tuesday project handoff with a coworker?
Oh, you don't send them a formal survey. You keep it conversational but deliberate.
Yeah.
When you hand off the project, you simply ask, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, did this format give you everything you need to start your phase of the work without hunting for information?
Ah, I love that.
Yeah, just a quick check-in to judge the lasting value and clarity of what you delivered.
That makes total sense. I mean, chasing pure speed, like desperately trying to get a high task completion rate without these quality metrics is like being a line cook who guarantees your meal will be on the table in 2 minutes.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Sure, the plate arrives incredibly fast, but the chicken is completely raw.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
You haven't actually saved anyone time. You've just created a food poisoning crisis and a massive amount of extra work for the rest of the kitchen.
That is a very vivid and highly accurate way to visualize it. If the output isn't usable, the speed is irrelevant.
Exactly.
And that tension between speed and usability transitions us perfectly into the next vital layer of this conversation. High-quality individual work is fantastic, but modern professionals do not work in a vacuum.
Right, we're all connected.
We have to look at how these personal metrics interact with a remote or hybrid team environment.
Because my personal productivity heavily depends on how well I collaborate with you. If I'm waiting on you for a file, my output drops to 0, no matter how good my focus blocks are.
Exactly. This raises an important question. How do we actually measure and manage team collaboration without accidentally micromanaging people or pushing them straight into burnout?
It's a fine line.
The text points to a structural solution called communication SLAs, or service level agreements.
See, an SLA is another one of those terms that usually applies to vendor contracts, right? Like guaranteeing 99% server uptime. How does it apply to human communication?
In this context, it means explicitly defining expected response times based on the channel being used by the team.
Okay, so making rules.
Right. You create an agreement. For instance, if I message you on our team chat, I need an instant reply because it's an active emergency. But if I send you the email, the team agreement states that a 24-hour turnaround is perfectly fine.
Setting those clear norms protects everyone's focus, because if you don't have those norms, you fall right into what the author calls digital presenteeism.
Yes, digital presenteeism is one of the most toxic side effects of remote and hybrid work.
The article explains the mechanics of this so well. It is that trap of equating visible activity with actual value.
We've all been there.
We have all felt it. It's the panic of making sure your status bubble stays green on the team chat.
Just jiggling the mouse.
Exactly. It's logging long hours online and having incredibly busy chat logs. But all of that visible activity is just hiding costly context switches. You are bouncing between browser tabs, checking notifications every 3 minutes, and looking incredibly busy. But you are yielding absolutely no meaningful output.
And it drains you.
It is physically and mentally exhausting. And at the end of the day, you wonder what you actually achieved.
This is the illusion of productivity, driven by anxiety. That is why SLAs are critical. They give you the psychological permission to close the chat app and actually do the work.
But let me push back on this collaborative ideal for a second.
Sure.
Because there is a real contradiction here. If I am fiercely protecting my 120-minute focus blocks, and I am ignoring all my messages during that time because our SLA says aren't I just being a massive bottleneck for my team?
It's a fair point.
Like, if they need me to review a document so they can move forward, my protected productivity is directly harming their ability to get anything done.
That is a very real, very common concern in modern teams. And the text provides a systemic solution for it. The answer isn't to abandon your focus blocks and go back to being interrupted every 5 minutes.
Okay, so what is it?
The answer is to establish shared knowledge bases.
Meaning what, practically?
Meaning you document your processes. If your team members can self-serve the answers they need, finding the brand guidelines, checking the project status on a shared board, or reading a standard operating procedure without tapping you on the virtual shoulder, you eliminate the bottleneck entirely.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Furthermore, to make sure the work is actually flowing, the author suggests measuring collaboration efficiency by tracking handoffs per deliverable and overall throughput.
Throughput meaning the actual number of finished, approved items the team gets across the finish line per week.
Exactly. You look at the flow of work to optimize the process. If a deliverable requires 12 handoffs back and forth between 3 people, the process is broken, regardless of how hard everyone is working.
Yeah, that's incredibly inefficient.
You fix the system rather than blaming individual people for delays.
Yeah.
And this leads to a major passionate warning from the author that we absolutely have to highlight. You must avoid using team metrics as a scorecard to judge individual employees.
Oh, right. The text specifically mentions using agile velocity for this, right? Can you break down why that is so dangerous?
Velocity is a project management term used to measure how much work a team can successfully complete in a single sprint or cycle.
Okay.
It is purely a planning tool designed to help a team understand its collective capacity so they don't overcommit.
Just a gauge, basically.
Right. But the moment management takes that team velocity metric and uses it in a performance review to rate an individual's worth, you severely harm team trust.
Because it changes the incentive structure entirely.
Completely. If I know my job security relies on a high velocity score, I will start inflating my time estimates. I will say a 2-hour task takes 6 hours just to protect myself and ensure I hit my numbers.
And then the data is ruined?
The data becomes entirely distorted. The team stops collaborating to help each other, and the metric becomes worse than useless. It actively degrades the team dynamic.
So what does this all mean? We have talked about a massive amount of data today. First contact resolution, service level agreements, plan to done ratios, defect logs, throughput.
It's a lot.
It sounds amazing and highly logical in theory, but data without action is just decoration. How does a listener actually implement this starting tomorrow without feeling like they need a master's degree in data science?
Yeah, or drowning in spreadsheets.
Exactly.
Well, the author is very clear that keeping it lightweight is the only way this survives contact with the real world. If tracking your productivity takes up a massive chunk of your productivity, you have failed.
Right.
You turn this data into decisions by using what the text calls the short weekly loop. It is a simple, recurring cadence, a Monday plan, a midweek check on Wednesday to see if you were drifting off course, and a Friday retro.
Let's talk about that Friday retro, because I know people who spend an hour agonizing over everything they did wrong that week.
Oh, you definitely don't want to do that.
You aren't trying to overhaul your entire working life in that session, right?
No, not at all. The retro should be 15 minutes, tops. You review your handful of metrics, maybe your plan-to-done ratio and your focus hours, and you pick just one goal-aligned change to test for the following week.
Just one single variable.
Exactly one. For example, you might look at your data and realize your focus hours are constantly being derailed. You say, next week, my single goal is to reduce the interruptions during my morning focus block by closing my email client entirely.
So simple.
You define that success metric before you start, you run the experiment on yourself, and the next Friday, you see what happened.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the article also shows how you can tie your personal output back to company-wide business metrics.
Yes, which is crucial.
Because ultimately, if you want a promotion or more resources, you have to prove your value in language that leadership understands.
Management speaks numbers.
Right. The text mentions looking at revenue per employee, which is simply the total company revenue divided by the total number of employees, or tracking your own utilization rate.
And the utilization rate is critical for knowledge workers. It is essentially your billable or goal-aligned hours divided by your total eligible working hours.
Okay, can you give an example?
Sure. If you work a 40-hour week and you spend 30 hours doing core goal-aligned work, your utilization rate is 75%.
But the text is very careful to lay down a strict rule here. You must aim for sustainable utilization, not 100%.
Never 100%.
And this goes back to our factory floor analogy. If you're running an assembly line conveyor belt, you want the machine running at 100% capacity. But if you demand 100% utilization from a human brain, you are engineering a system perfectly designed for burnout.
It is biologically impossible. You have to build in buffer time for learning new skills, for unavoidable admin, and frankly, just for breathing between intense cognitive tasks.
We aren't robots.
Exactly. The source references recent Gallup reports highlighting massive engagement gaps in the modern workforce, pointing out the severe struggle employees face with constant digital distractions and lack of recovery time.
It's a real crisis.
It is. If leadership ignores well-being and context, demanding maximum utilization, the numbers will completely mislead them, and their best people will simply quit.
It really all comes back to treating yourself and your team like human beings, not just gears in a machine. You use these metrics to identify the friction, to clear the path, so the human can do what they actually do best, which is creative problem solving.
Beautifully said.
Which brings up a final provocative thought to leave you with. In the related posts section of the SmartKeys article, there is a brief mention of a task automation playbook.
Oh, right. I saw that.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if artificial intelligence and automation eventually take over the entire input side of our daily routine tasks. You know, all the basic scheduling, the manual data entry, the sorting of emails.
Which is happening fast.
It is. So perhaps the future of productivity won't be about measuring output per hour at all. Maybe in just a few short years, the ultimate metric of a highly successful professional will simply be the absolute absence of busy work.
Wow, absence of busy work. I like that.
Right. The true measure of your value will be the sheer depth of human focus, empathy, and creativity you can bring to a complex problem once the robots are handling the spreadsheets. It is definitely something to mull over as you plan your focus blocks for next week.
Absolutely.
Well, we want to explicitly thank you for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast. We hope this deep dive gave you some highly practical tools to take control of your time, measure your true impact, and escape the exhaustion of digital presenteeism.
It's been a great conversation.
Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app so you never miss a deep dive into the strategies and research shaping the future of work. And we highly encourage you to read Felix Römer's full article to see all these formulas, real-world examples, and weekly loop strategies laid out for yourself. You can find the direct link to the piece right there in the show notes. Until next time, keep measuring what matters.